sister moon. I seldom see you, seldom hear your tune. Preoccupied with selfish misery.
Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, reporting back on day 3 of the second part of my Camino of St. Francis of Assisi through Umbria. And I'm talking to you now from an absolutely unbelievably gorgeous spot. It's called Pieve di Saddi. It's a 4th century church with a kind of albergue attached to it, a donativo albergue. And so I'm sleeping up in the tower where that window is there, you can see. That's where I'll be sleeping tonight. We're going to have a big communal meal. And I guess that sets the scene because today is the day I feel where my Camino began. The other 2 days were warm up. I was getting in a rhythm. Today I actually felt I was in a rhythm, but more than that, it's really begun to feel like a Camino. There have been other pilgrims, and there's also been pilgrim like institutions and paraphernalia, and it feels almost a bit like on the Camino Via Frances, because you feel like you're doing a shared experience with other people. That said, I walked alone today, and I expect to walk alone for most, if not all, of this Camino. One reason is that there are not huge numbers of other pilgrims, and the other is that I am a slow walker, and whilst they're all kind of in the rhythm because they began in Florence or wherever else, I'm slower than even my normal slow self because I've only just begun. Um, but yes, it's been a very good day today. I was worried before because I thought, oh my God, this is the day with a huge distance to cover. It actually isn't. That's tomorrow. So now I'm worried about tomorrow. But this was my first full Camino length day. It's a 20-kilometer day, and a lot of it was climbing. Not much descent, and the descent was gradual, but there was a lot of climbing, and there was one climb for several kilometers, which I found very tough. I'm not going to lie on that. Began earlier this morning. The place I stayed last night, it was a weird place. It was like a big apartment in an old townhouse in Citta de Castello. And it was very weirdly furnished. Like some parts were gorgeous. I mean, the living room where I sat and did a bit of typing and lit a candle was, like something out of the Renaissance. And it was a wonderful building on these beamed ceilings, but like, I don't know, it was just not, it was just a bit weird. Like the other living room was very kind of contemporary and naff, and I had like a clown lamp and like leather lamps by the bed. I don't know who. I just think like the guy, like any of his spare stuff, he just chucked in there with no thought to it. There was about 7 or 8 rooms in this that are let out. There's only 2 let out last night, so I almost had the place for myself. But although it was a fine place, I didn't feel welcomed. I didn't feel a sense of warmth which I'd felt at the last 2, both in Titana and in San Sepolcro, and that I feel here. It wasn't somewhere I wanted to stick around at. And so that's that. So I didn't stick around. I went early in the morning, had a croissant and a coffee in the old town, and then went off. And I walked the first 6 kilometers to Il Sasso, which is the only bar en route today, pretty steadily. It was an uphill all the way, but it was not an undoable uphill. It was on a road, but it wasn't a busy road, and it was a lot pleasanter than yesterday. The busy road yesterday was not nice. And then in Il Sasso, which was by some little waterfalls, it was really pleasant actually. I didn't have my lunch because I wasn't really hungry, but I had a little bit of a cake and a couple of drinks, and then moved on. After I moved on, I chanced upon an Italian pilgrim called Marco, and we chatted for a while. And then he moved on. He was a quicker walker, and then we went off the road and onto a gravel path, and it was gorgeous. This was proper Camino stuff, but it was tough. So it zigzagged at first through olive groves, which was absolutely stunning. But I was really struggling with the climb, not gonna lie. And that continued. I mean, there was just 1 kilometer where I kept on having to stop, and I did rest for a while, and then eventually got out on the top. And I had a rest there, and I met the two Americans, Marianne and Michael, again. But they passed on; they were walking faster than me, and then I carried on. And again, the climb continued. It was steady and relentless, and I wanted to walk all the way to like a picnic site called, I think, Cardeggio. Um, and that was my goal, but I was struggling towards the end. I ain't gonna lie. Got there, had my lunch, had a bit of a read, and just zonked out and actually fell asleep on one of the benches or for a little bit. And then after that, I walked the remaining probably 5.5 kilometers in one go. Didn't stop. It seemed to go on a bit at times, but again, this is when the Camino really started to become Camino for me, because I was in a rhythm. I'd conquered the hills. I wasn't thinking about the climb, and my mind began to wander. And it wandered onto different topics. So my friend Roseanne, who's had a little bit of a bad experience before, came out, was thinking about her. And then I got onto the topic of my mum. And obviously I mentioned my prime thing where I'm doing this Camino at the moment. And I just burst into tears. And I burst into tears at how unfair it was. And just, I let it out. And it was probably healthy, but I was just walking along crying, and Camino lets out stuff that's inside. Doesn't necessarily give you an answer, but that's that. So anyway, I walked on and on and on, and the tears dried up, and then I eventually got to my destination for tonight, which is this Pieve di Saddi, and it's wonderful. It's this oasis of spirituality. It's run by these two guys. One who's got a beard far more impressive than mine, and he looks like an Italian Santa Claus, and the other is like an Italian Telly Savalas, completely bald. But they're you can tell they're really into it, and this is their labour of love, and it's wonderful. And I mean, the church is 4th century, and there was martyrs buried here, but they later moved them to the cathedral. Uh, but it's just there cannot be a finer spot in all Christendom. I think it's gorgeous. It overlooks this valley. It's just so peaceful. And there's 3 Brazilian pilgrims here, different ones than before. The 2 Americans and the Italian fellow. And there's a couple of others as well. So yeah, it's good. I'm planning to go to bed early tonight. I've got 28 kilometers tomorrow. Will I do it? I don't know. It was easier today. You know, I've done 20. So I did like about 10 or 11. Then I did 15. Now I've done 20. So it is another step up. But I'm going to space it out. I'm going to, if I need to lie down for an hour, and if that means I get in at 9 at night, I will get in at 9 at night. I'm going to try and not call a taxi. But if I have to, I have to. I've done 29 and a half before, but I was a lot younger then and fitter. We shall see. But I tell you what, if you're going to be knackered and you're going to be in agony through all the walking. By the way, the ankle pain wasn't too bad today, although I did take 2 ibuprofens. Yeah, if you're going to be in pain, you might as well be in pain somewhere like this. This is stupendous. This is stupendous. This is what Camino is all about. It's me, Uncle Travelling Matt, saying, keep travelling and stay on the path.
brother sun and sister moon, I now do see you, I can hear your tune, so much in love with all that I survey.